Telltale Guys, Stanley Meyer's death, and the water-powered car.
What's your ETA? We'll be there in 2 minutes. Come on, we have lives to save here.
Yes. Welcome back, Telltale Guys. In the house, I am Josh, and with me is Zane. Zane, that was quite a mouthful of a title we had this week.
I know.
Good.
And behind the scenes for all our fans out there, we debated for like 10 minutes on how to summarize this stupid title. But, we work in communications. It shows, obviously.
I wanted to go with the title to be "To Whom It May Concern." This episode will be about this man, and so on, blah blah.
Yeah, paragraph long. So,
oh man,
I'm sure there was a better way of doing that, but hopefully, it was hook, line, and sinker for all of you.
Oh yeah, it should be a good episode, I think. And before we get into it, just want to remind people to follow us and like us on all our socials at Telltale Guys. Also, if you have any stories or whatever you'd like to share with us, you can send us an email at heyguys@telltaleguys.com. But Zane, how are you doing this week?
I am doing well. I was excited. I was at the grocery store today or yesterday, and pumpkin spice everything is back, including like pumpkin spice like chips, which I didn't get, but I got some delicious cookies from Sprouts, so that was very exciting. So I'm a fan of the whole. I'm the pumpkin spice basic bee over here. So
okay, all right.
I do not deny it.
You're representing your ethnicity well, I guess.
Yes, very, very, very white.
Yeah, I don't get it. I mean, it's delicious, but I'm like, it's not really pumpkin flavored. It's just nutmeg and cinnamon. You can get that all year round.
Yeah, I don't. I'm sure there's some organic recipes out there for various items, but I'm not aware of any actual pumpkin ingredients going in any of these. It's just like the spices.
Yeah. Nutmeg and cinnamon, maybe some, what's the other one? Cloves, maybe.
Yeah.
Might be in there, but
because like the actual pumpkin flavor is really not that good in my opinion.
A little subtle. It's subtle, but I do like a good pumpkin pie. But I think my favorite pie for this time, the fall season, would be a sweet potato pie. Do you like that?
Yeah, I don't really have it that much. It's just not like commonly served. But it is pretty good. I mean, it's kind of similar to like pumpkin pie, where it's like it's got originally like a not as sweet base, but then they add stuff to it, and right?
Yeah, I mean, it tastes, it has a little bit more earthiness to it because it's sweet potatoes. And I make a pretty mean one. I like to use Japanese sweet potatoes. They have a different flavor profile, a little bit more chestnutty, I feel, than the typical orange ones you find. This isn't a cooking show, but they just got me going about the potatoes.
We can have a cooking episode at one time. That'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, Telltale Guys recipe.
Yeah, you're a pretty good baker from what I'm seeing on the socials and all that. So maybe we have a sweet potato recipe. But what's a very important ingredient in all sorts of cakes and baking foods? Do you know what that ingredient is, Josh?
Is it mystery?
No, it's water.
Oh, water.
Yeah. So we're actually going to go into this kind of mystery rabbit hole, little possible conspiracy going on here, where we're going to discuss Stanley Meyer, who was the supposed inventor of a water-based fuel source for automobiles.
Okay. No relation to John Mayer, right?
No, actually different spelling. Mayer, John Mayer, Mayer, and this guy is Meyer.
Okay.
And I know that because I'm actually before I met my wife
fan club
of John Mayer's fan club. No, but like before I met my wife, I didn't really didn't dislike or like John Mayer, but now I'm a big fan of him. He's actually very good in concert, so I recommend. So I like pumpkin spice lattes and John Mayer, so I am very white.
I was gonna say I feel like him and pumpkin spice go hand in hand together. Throw on some UGG boots and Boy, you got yourself the trifecta.
Yeah, yeah. Um, well, anyways, we can jump from John Mayer to the unfortunate, I guess life of this man, Stanley Mayer. Um, and so we'll start out actually, not from the start where he invented this fuel, but also kind of at his unfortunate demise.
Oh, okay. Little
So-
memento action. Start from the end.
yeah. So this is him right here, and actually to his right, you can see his dune buggy, and it's water powered car, I believe. But yeah, this is the man himself. And so what he did is he supposedly invented this water based fuel for cars, and this was in the 70s. But the unfortunate end started out like this. So in Grove City, Ohio, on March 21st, 1998, him and three other men, I think it was his friends and his brother, they're having lunch at a restaurant. And the men had just been served drinks. And I was trying to find and dig, and I couldn't find exactly what drink he had. Was it water,
Pumpkin
coffee?
spice lattes.
Would have been a pumpkin spice latte. Um, and after taking a sip, unfortunately for Stanley, he immediately gets up. He starts acting crazy, starts clutching at his throat, and runs out of the restaurant into the parking lot. And before he collapses and dies, witnesses have heard him saying, "They poisoned me," and he collapses and dies.
Oh,
And so there is obviously an investigation. There was detective, Steve Robinette, who was assigned to the case. He identified the man as Mr. Mayer, a citizen of this town, Grove City, and he investigated all the witnesses in the restaurant, in the parking lot, anyone around, and including the four men that were having lunch with Mayer. And several of these people, they heard his last words, and some even said, there was more than just like they poisoned me. Some said he said along the lines of they poisoned me. It's because what I'm doing with like the car world, something to that. Like he kind of like said this because of something to do with the automobile industry. And
hmm.
they poisoned me, fell dead. And so newspapers kind of got wind of this. There's a good little diagram here, but it's kind of hard to see. Um,
Okay.
so I believe this newspaper article is kind of hard to see, but I think it happened a little while ago after the murder because people kind of not the murder, possible murder. Um, but they were looking into, this was kind of suspicious. This guy had a pretty interesting tech that he just added to the world. And so people were kind of putting two together. It was like, was this on purpose? Why did he die? What is the deal with this mystery?
So the headline says, for those just listening to us,
Mhm.
says, "Did Stanley Meyer die because he knew how to turn water into fuel?"
Mhm.
Where is that? Did it say what paper that's from?
It's called the Express. I can
Okay.
provide the notes actually. I'm not exactly sure where it's based out of because there are several newspapers with that title. But we can look into that. But yeah, it has a cool diagram here, and obviously, like this type of fuel is used in some sort of way for rocket ships. I mean, this whole idea of using water for fuel. I mean, it's already used in cars essentially, but it's just like a section for how automobiles work. It's what for like
Ah,
the cooling process mostly, but this is different because, and I'll go into it. Water is the main source of fuel instead of
okay.
oil, gas, and it has a very just clean byproduct.
So you get into like how his engine actually works a little bit later.
Yep.
Okay, cool. I was trying to follow the diagram here. I was like,
I'll have a better one, which is actually more confusing, but you can see
oh,
a little
good.
bit more. Yeah.
Yes.
But the way I describe it will make a little bit more sense.
Okay.
But during this investigation, Robinette and his team they performed toxicology analysis and they interviewed the coroner, and basically the results were pretty normal. The death was, caused by a brain aneurysm, possibly linked to previous episodes of hypertension that Mr. Mayer unfortunately suffered from. Uh,
Hmm.
the coroner he made sure to look for foul play, and he examined any like possible poison related possibilities because Mayer yelled out, according to witnesses, "I've been poisoned," dropped dead. But his report came back with no, and this was quotes in like his, documented report. No poison known to American science has been found. So I know this isn't science. Or this is in the 70s. So I
Or the
guess.
90s, right? Late 90s. This is
Excuse me, you're right. He died in 1998, but like he invented this in the 70s. Excuse me.
okay. Yeah.
Um, but so yeah, it's interesting to note that you said American science, but you know, if we still want to go down this rabbit hole, automotive industry is international.
Oh
So,
yeah.
uh, but with these discoveries, Robinette closed the case and it concluded that Mayer died of natural causes. Um, but he didn't realize, I don't think at this time, that the tech that Mayer invented, like possibly invented, could have revolutionized the automobile industry. And so, I mean, when you think about it, he may have created a lot of enemies.
So this coroner, was it, you said in Ohio is where he died? Did you mention the
Mhm.
town?
Let me just confirm that. Yeah, Ohio, Grove City. I'm not that familiar with the
Okay.
town.
Was the coroner was from Grove City, or did they
I
say
think
it
it was
was
a city or state,
like a big
coroner.
city one?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure.
Okay.
But definitely it fell under his jurisdiction. Um,
Like the Wizard of Oz coroner is all I can think about is we pronounce you mostly dead. What does he say? I can't remember. But from the Wizard of Oz, when the
there was
house
a.
falls on the witch, and then the coroner comes by, and he's like
I
says
don't
his
even.
little,
I don't remember. I remember her dying. I don't remember there was a coroner in there
yeah.
who
He's
came
like,
by.
as coroner, I do declare something. Maybe we'll
Wow.
drop that in post.
Sure, we can. I don't remember that. It's been a long time since I've seen Wizard of Oz. So,
Yeah, yeah.
um,
Oh,
but
maybe I should look it up right now.
if you want to pull it up, you can. That's fine.
Yeah, okay. Maybe coroner.
I wasn't that
Wizard of-
big of a fan of that movie growing up. Like it was. I was like, this is just. It's old. I'm sure it looks kind of cool, but like it wasn't my thing growing up.
You didn't like it? Oh man, it's so good. I
It's
always
okay.
like looking for the death of the Munchkin in the scene, but it wasn't real. It was just like an urban legend. Here, let me share this real quick so I can
Sure.
kind of off track us, I guess. Um, share my screen.
We're the only professional thing we're good at is going off track. So that's fine.
Yeah. All right.
What?
So, all right.
Like,
Do you hear it?
no.
Oh, you don't hear? Oh, okay. Hold on.
Oh my god, I don't remember this. We kind of get the idea though. I'm
All
not
right.
hearing it, but that's all right.
Oh, okay. All
Yeah.
right. Well, people familiar with it can watch it. Um, but it was great.
Anyways,
He has
back
a
to
little song.
water-based fuel. So let's go back to the 1970s.
Okay.
A few decades after Wizard of Oz. So Mayer, he was kind of a tinkerer. He was always trying to patent all sorts of different technical solutions. He was building things. I don't know the exact products, but like he was working in the banking sector, so finance, even in medical sector with heart monitors, which is ironic if he did die from, had some issues with hypertension. But who doesn't these days? He
Mm.
then began exploring inventions and ideas for the automobile industry. This was because during the 70s, countries in the Middle East had initiated oil embargoes that were affecting the whole world, and especially the U.S. automobile industry. So car sales were just going down too.
Mhm.
And so Mayer, I mean, he's not even, I don't know his full like educational background, but he wasn't like, an accredited scientist and anything. He was just like, I think a blue collar,
Just like
just
to
take,
tinker around.
just like to tinker around. And he had just a bunch of ideas in his head and was trying to make up inventions. So he looked into alternate fuel options for cars to get, out of this rut of oil dependency that the US was under and seems like will always will be. So
Admirable.
yes, his brainstorming led to possible water propulsion systems, and supposedly he created a fuel cell. And here's a really confusing ass diagram, but it looks kind of cool. So it's right there.
Okay.
And this diagram shows that water atoms um, in this fuel cell were split into their elemental form, burning hydrogen to create energy, which would in turn make the car operable. But while only releasing oxygen and water residue through the exhaust pipe, thus generating harmless and kind of possibly beneficial emissions for the surrounding environment.
So is it kind of like a hydrogen car? Well, I guess it's not hydrogen if it's just the water. Kind of having a hard time following this diet. Where does the water go in?
I looked at it and like I said, it just looks interesting.
Okay, all
But
right.
you can get kind of a better idea in this little blurry video package, which we're very good at showing.
Okay, blurry videos, nice.
Yeah.
Meyer has turned that
Let's see.
process on its head. Unlike electrolysis, his device doesn't use up large amounts of electric current, nor does it produce an enormous amount of waste heat. For 20 years, he has been refining a method to fracture water, which produces vast amounts of hydrogen on demand. This is not his latest apparatus. He was unwilling to let us point a camera at him. This is the simple device he used to convince a reluctant patent office that his revolutionary concept actually works.
Okay.
Alloy rods, acting as electrodes, are housed in a perspex container that's filled with water. Normal mains voltage is fed in through a transformer, but critically, there is virtually no current consumed, less than half an amp. The result is dramatic. Hydrogen pours off with the flick of a switch. Meyer claims the key is his electronics, which pulses electricity rapidly across the rods at up to 20,000 cycles per second. In a way that's not readily apparent, this process transforms the equation. Whereas in conventional electrolysis, 3 times as much energy is consumed as is produced in the form of hydrogen fuel, in Meyer's apparatus, the reverse is true. It appears to produce several 100% more energy than it consumes.
All right. So kind
Hmm.
of makes it clear. Not really.
Okay, so I think like there's like he's extracting the hydrogen from the water to use the
Mhm.
hydrogen as the fuel to drive the car. So that's what it sounded like to me. So like water goes
It,
in, his electrical system splits the water molecules. So
H2O.
yeah, H2O. So then you just have oxygen and the hydrogen. Hydrogen goes off this way to go power your vehicle because
Mhm.
hydrogen is a powerful fuel source. But he's claiming his device would produce more power than it consumes.
Mhm.
Is what it sounded like he was saying.
Right. But there's also
Which,
a couple of red flags in that little video. I don't know if you caught it. He was saying he didn't want to show his full vehicle. Like that was like kind of like a part of the fuel source, part of the
mhm,
engine, if you will, um, because like he just didn't. There's some issues going forward after he invents this, where people who are part of the patent office, auditors from them, also people who are investors are like, can we actually see, this product that you invented and see that it is really is working, or not just claiming that it's producing 1,000 times more energy than it
mhm,
takes to produce.
yeah,
So right there, it's interesting in that video because it says he's like, I don't want you to see everything, which kind of is his MO, as I'll go into.
sure. Although on
Um,
the flip side, you can kind of argue like, okay, well, I'm not going to let you have the cow for free here. You steal my idea. So
yeah,
I can understand being protective of it.
right. Um, so, but like I mentioned this a little bit earlier, like using water in automobiles it's not maybe as a main fuel source, but it is a big part of automobiles and tech. So manufacturers in the past they've been trying to figure out how to use hydrogen propulsion. But like it's still part of the process. There have been all sorts of examples. Like here's this one right here that was back in the 30s. So this is an image of a Fiat Stangalini, I'm saying 750 Sport that won the Torbrook Tripoli race in 1939. In that case, water was vaporized in the combustion chamber to improve cooling. So I kind of referred to it earlier, like water is used a lot in automobiles, but it's mostly
Okay.
kind of for cooling, lubrication purposes.
Like
So
in
it's
the
been
old theaters and stuff.
right. So it's been around, but
Okay.
it's still interesting. And I mean, just when you just put two and two together, if you make this into a fuel source, this is going to have major ramifications across the world.
Sure. And the planet's 70% water, so like it's everywhere.
Hmm. Um,
I
and
like that
so
guy's stick though. That's fancy.
I know. So I guess this is right during, like, it was 1939.
Yeah. In
This is like
Italy? What was
Italy,
going
so
on over there at that time?
a lot of Mussolini stuff.
Yeah.
So you know, not a great, not a great time in Italy
No.
leading up to this, right before World War II, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So going back to Mayer, he took this idea of, how can we, transfer the use of water into a more of a main source of fuel and energy for cars, and he took that kind of that fuel invention that you saw in that package, and he put it in a buggy, and we kind of already saw it earlier, but here it is right here,
Okay.
kind of
It's
like
cool.
you can kind of like at the very top, especially on the side, you can see on the right side, you can see that kind of water chamber that he had.
What did you
So
say on the right side?
kind of the right side toward the end, I believe, on the
Oh,
top
okay.
photo is that kind of cylinder that he had in like his little lab. Uh, and so this is what he, advertised. This is my, water propulsion vehicle. It's a little dune buggy. He called it the water powered car. And Mayer claimed that the vehicle could travel 180 kilometers, or roughly around 111 miles, with just 4 liters or a little over 1 gallon of water as its fuel.
Okay.
So
That's
very
good
efficient,
production. Yeah.
right? And it's like, if this really worked, and maybe we could talk about this later, but like, it's not using that much water, but still, if like let's say the whole industry flipped from oil or electricity to using water, how impactful would that be on us consuming water? So
Mhm.
it's like, would that be a scary scenario or not? Or is it the benefiting, like it's exhausting out water and oxygen? Is that a benefit in itself? Anyways, that's something we can talk about later.
Sure.
Um, but I also got another little news report here that kind of gives you a little bit more clear and idea of how this works and the ramifications.
The top our news here at 6 o'clock, an age-old dream becoming a reality. A local inventor has discovered a way, hear this, to use water to run your car.
It's a major breakthrough that will no doubt make motorists happy. And as Ralph Robinson explains, the Pentagon is also showing lots of interest in this project.
Water has always been considered a precious commodity, but Stan Meyer's invention may make it even more valuable. He has developed what's called a water fuel cell. It has taken the place of his old gas tank. The water fuel cell breaks down water molecules into oxygen and hydrogen. The hydrogen is used to run his dune buggy.
I don't care if you use rainwater, well water, city water, ocean water. If you don't have any fresh water, go ahead and use snow. If you don't have any snow available to you, they use salt water because there's no adverse effect to the fuel cell.
Meyer started working on this project 4 years ago. He's not a scientist. He isn't even a chemist. In fact, he never graduated from college. Myers was determined, he says, to design something to protect this country from oil embargoes.
And we have calculated that if we take the dune buggy from Los Angeles to New York, we would roughly use 22 gallons of water.
The Pentagon flew a lieutenant colonel in last week to look at Meyer's invention. There's talk of possibly using it in the Star Wars defense program and to run army tanks. Myers is currently perfecting a water fuel cell for cars. It will cost about $1,500. He says it won't need any maintenance, and you won't have to replace it. It'll be at least 2 years before the fuel system goes into mass production. The day it happens will be one the fuel industry hates. but it'll put a smile on the face of those who've had to say at one time or another, fill her up. I'm Ralph Robbins.
As you can see, many patents have already been received.
Okay. Yeah, there was a little package added on there. I don't know how that happened, but
What is that?
I don't know. It was something right at the end of that video that I couldn't cut.
Was that local news or was that
That,
national?
I think that was local news.
Okay, in
From
Ohio.
yeah. So interesting right there, and
Hmm.
kind of you could see. So he said Operation Star Wars kind of was involved. So that's the Reagan time, right? So that's like
Yeah, we
80s.
we talked about that in the Bell Island episode with
Mhm,
the laser developments and stuff like that. I don't know how this would be applicable to, I guess, the power of spaceships or something,
mhm,
which maybe. But I got the impression for him talking there that he didn't seem like a con man to me. He seemed like he was pretty confident in, like, matter of fact, kind of. He didn't seem like he was trying to get one over on people, to
mhm.
me, anyways, on that particular clip.
Yeah, he seemed proud of this product, and like, I mean, you just took a look at that little buggy driving around. I mean, this is in the 80s. You would have seen exhausts like pop out of that thing. And
Hmm.
I mean, I could be wrong, but maybe there was some like electrical vehicles back then that were moving that quickly, but I don't know. But that seemed like that thing was moving quick and efficient and smooth. And you saw nothing coming out of that exhaust.
And you think too, like in back in the 80s. I mean, I know the media has quite the reputation, especially today. And I know even back then they did to some extent, but you would think they would have done a little bit of fact checking and looking into something to, hey, someone claiming they have a crazy story that sounds far fetched. They wouldn't just be like, okay, we're just popping on the news and there it is. You think they'd have a little bit of like, well, show me how it works. Put the water
Mhm.
in. Okay. Oh, it looks like it worked. Okay. It looked like, why would they just go along for the ride? Is what I'm saying.
Well, I mean, and one clip of there, he was like kind of filling up with something, but it was really quick, so you couldn't really see. Um, but yeah, I mean, that kind of goes along with what I'm about to talk about is that Mayer was kind of like he was a little cagey about kind of showing everything, and so there was some scrutiny that was involved. So, as you can see, this was probably that news clip was I don't know, 5 to 10 years later after he invented this fuel cell,
Hmm.
and so it gained more public awareness through news coverage. His friends talked about it, colleagues, and business contacts, but it started kind of leading into some negative stuff for Mayer. So and this gets into like legal territory. So in 1996, an American judicial authority looked into this invention, and this was petitioned by his investors. I kind of touched on this earlier. And they were suspicious of the veracity of Mayer's this revolutionary automobile. They wanted to see how this vehicle truly operated and if it would be a return of investment for the money that they put into this. So a Fayette County judge in Ohio appointed 3 surveyors to analyze a car, but Mayer refused to submit the vehicle. He just kept it in his garage. And this lack of cooperation led to the surveyor saying that the mayor's principle for this invention was trivial, and there was no evidence that it could lead to some industry impacting change. And the judge declared that the investment funds to Mayer were stolen by Mayer under deception and gross and egregious fraud, and he was sentenced to return it to the investors.
How
And
much money was it? Did it say?
I didn't see the actual funds, but all I know is that, Mayer he was not rich. So I think he fought this or he just didn't really pay up or was paying slowly. But that would turn into a stressful thing for him. Um,
Hmm.
which, some people might say, well, maybe these type of stresses that he encountered kind of led to his demise, but I don't know. Um, and these legal and financial woes, they were compounded with supposed threats that Stanley was receiving from representatives from oil companies around the world. Um, and he even like received large financial offers. I don't know the sum to basically take over his tech or to destroy his tech, which he refused. So it sounds like he was pretty stubborn man. And he
Mhm.
was like, "I am proud of this invention. This is mine." And so similar to those legal auditors, he refused to show even to the science communities. I think they had some scientists from various universities who wanted to check out the inner workings of the car, but he displayed paranoia and he just flatly refused.
Hmm.
So detractors have even pointed to the idea that Mayer's engine, may have been actually impractical, and that there's this idea that HTO as an element, right? Um, yeah, um,
Well,
chart of
it's a
elements,
it's a couple elements, yeah. Oxygen,
couple
hydrogen,
out. Okay, maybe compound. Anyways, I didn't do well in chemistry, but it's water molecules.
molecules.
Molecules. There it is. I can read my script right there, and I would have answered my question.
Benzene, Zane, benzene.
That's right. So it's actually a very stable molecule. So trying to break them down for energy would, according to some people in the science community, require more energy to create than the reaction of the output of energy. So basically, it would be ineffective as a fuel source because it would just take so much effort to kind of produce the vehicle being operable.
Mhm.
So he had a lot of things going against him for this,
Like
and
physics.
physics, and just big old corporations, possibly.
Sure.
So this brings us back to actually, I want to jump ahead and shortly after Stanley's death, Stephen Mayer, his brother, claimed that unidentified people stole Mayer's buggy from his garage, along with various tools and instruments. And but later it was recovered, um, and it's kind of unclear under the circumstances and conditions, but it was found, and eventually the family just sold the vehicle to associates that were based in Canada, and the story is kind of quietly fizzled away.
Hmm.
So that's kind of where it goes from here. It just, like, there wasn't any more media interest in it anymore. I guess the whole flashiness of, hey, these are new full source was nice in the 80s, maybe 90s, but it kind of died there along with Mr. Mayer.
So the
So
late 90s, they sold off his research or whatever to the Canadian people, you said?
yeah, there's associates. It might have been not necessarily like his whole research, but like at least that vehicle.
Okay.
But it just seems like this was just kind of squashed and left for dead. So I don't know where your thoughts are on big corporations, big tech, and all that. We've heard recent issues lately, especially we had a couple whistleblowers die mysteriously with the whole
Mhm.
Boeing investigation with a lot of
Yeah.
their vehicles having issues. So what do you think? Do you just from what I gave you here, do you think this was something, maybe he was poisoned by
Well, there's a couple things that stand out when you were talking about the coroner talking about, him being poisoned. He's like, well, there's no poison known to American scientists,
Mhm,
which would be a weird qualifier to add to it because you would think like, okay, American scientists are going to know about pretty much everything because we're cutting edge on science usually.
mhm,
So maybe if he was a small town coroner, maybe it wasn't known to him.
sure.
So, and that leaves maybe a wide range of things. I mean, Russia poisons people with weird concoctions, like they try to take out the what was it some world leader a couple years ago, and he had some
Mhm.
weird poison effect, and it was like he survived it, but it was nasty. And the way this
Was it
guy,
like a radiation type of poisoning, or was that something
um,
else? I
I
know they
think that might
used
have
that
been
before.
yeah, I mean that's been used too. I can't remember which one this particular one I'm thinking of, but it was some weird thing they used that was very obscure. Maybe it was a type of radiation in some kind of. I can't really remember, but the point was that I think there's ways to poison people that wouldn't necessarily jump out at you, and especially in maybe the 80s when your smaller town coroners or even city coroners, they don't necessarily have all the testing stuff to catch everything, right? As
Mhm.
much like in the Olympics in the 80s, everybody was doped up out of their minds and like track and field and stuff like that. And they caught some people, but I think lots of people just slept through the cracks because they couldn't detect it, even though they knew, hey, this person's clearly on some kind of, drugs here, but
Mhm.
we don't know what it is because we don't have the technology to test it. So I think that's one thing that could be a possibility here with that from the coroner's point of view. I don't know if you had the similar thoughts there.
Yeah, I agree. I think especially this whole idea of this type of new fuel source. I mean, obviously, like I said, this would have huge ramifications for the whole automobile industry and maybe other industries, probably other industries for sure. And so, oil, big oil is a huge cash flow for the whole world, all these different countries, all these different companies. And so I can see, either governments or huge corporations being like, no. So
Oh yeah.
we're gonna use whatever shadiness we can use that, you know, has some sort of uh killing poison, let's say, that is, at this time not detectable, that can maybe off the sky. And one thing that's interesting for these type of stories, it's there's a pattern here where these people who are in the targets of these countries, these corporations, they usually don't have mysterious deaths immediately, but it's usually several years down the road when the kind of the tension has died down. And
Hmm.
so kind of that's what's kind of popping out to me for this guy. Like maybe like we didn't like what this guy did. We kind of ruined his life by having all these legal, financial auditors, everything thrown at him, and maybe we just kind of shut him up. But just
Yeah,
because
maybe
he
get it closer to get it like into production or something like that, and they wanted to take him
Mhm,
out before it did. Like, would I put it past a business that had ties doing that? No. Would I
mhm,
put it past the government, the U.S. government doing that? No.
mhm,
Um, so the two that stood out was when you said the way he died, like he got up and he said something like, and then the coroner just like, oh, he had an aneurysm. It was like from what I understand, when people have aneurysms, it's like a massive thundercrack, like headache type of thing, and it's just like it's very quick, and
right.
they're not like talking necessarily about formulating like, oh, this is because I invented this thing, and oh my god,
Mhm.
it's killing me, and oh, now I'm dead. Like it seems like it's a very quick and odd way to die without a lot of stuff going around with it, like having the aneurysm. It seems like that wouldn't really fit to like how he was talking and acting.
And well, remember he also like went to his throat too.
Yeah,
He like was like struggling, like
yeah, good
something was
point.
in
Yeah.
his throat, was really hurting him. And yeah, he had enough time to make it out into the parking lot. I'm not that familiar with aneurysms, but from what I've heard, it sounds like it's fairly quick and like you kind of pass out from it. I could be exactly if you're looking up, please tell the audience. But he had enough time to go out into the parking lot and say something was wrong. He was grasping his throat and then fell over. And, the whole idea, maybe he kind of linked it to, oh, it's because I made this invention, blah, blah, blah. I don't, that sounds kind of made up to me. I think maybe more so his friends who were there, his brother was like, yeah, our brother, my brother, he invented this thing. This is kind of fishy. And he's had issues for, 20 something years after he invented this. A lot of people were kind of targeting him. So we're suspicious already.
So you think that part was maybe embellished a little bit, him saying that it's because I invented the cars?
Yeah. It's like,
Yeah.
I just can't imagine what you would say to make that clear. And,
Did you look up any like fast acting poisons or anything like that? Like what could
no,
have
I
been the
didn't.
culprit?
No,
I
I
was gonna
didn't.
look it up now, but I didn't want to get on any like lists or look at fast acting human poisons.
Yeah, that's tricky. I mean, yeah, don't
Yeah.
do that, I guess.
But
Or if
maybe
you
like yeah, stuff like nightshade derivatives, maybe, I don't know, arsenic stuff. I think that's slower acting. I don't know what's a quick acting poison for people. But I would imagine there is something out there that would
mhm,
make you go that quick. And even like in the mushroom world, I mean, I think some of those things, like if you ingest mushrooms, like you're gone really, really fast.
Mhm.
But it was
This
very
almost makes
sudden.
me it was sudden, and it makes me almost, like, think of, like, some sort of spy element there.
Hmm.
How yeah, like you
Like
said,
cyanide. Yeah, cyanide
Russia.
capsules. So they take that,
Mhm,
it like foams up at their mouth, and then they, die, I guess.
mhm.
But there
It
was
didn't
no
say in the report
chemical.
if he foamed up, but, like, he grasped his throat and something was very wrong and he died quickly, so, I
Yeah.
mean, would that I mean, we've heard of, like, North Korea and Russia, and it's like, I don't know, I mean, this is such a crazy invention, and I can see it, you know, let's get rid of the government or these, corporations, or be like, "Let's get rid of this guy because he has it in his head, but we can also, like, take this idea if it can somehow make money for us." So
Yeah, I guess if they dissolve maybe the cyanide in the water or something and he drank it, maybe that would be no saying no, don't drink it.
yeah.
But as far as like the people making money off of it, like the catch and kill strategy for getting patents that might be harmful to your business model. I know that's a practice that some businesses do. Like somebody invents something, they'll go and buy out that person and just kind of like shelf the thing so nobody else gets it. And in
Mm,
that way,
interesting.
they keep making their money off of whatever it is they're making money off of. Because it's much
Oh,
easier for a company that's already established to keep doing what they're doing than like revamping their whole industry business and
that's a good point.
factories and stuff like that. So even though they'd make a lot of money, they it cost them a lot more just to get going. I think kind of like how Elon Musk wanted, he does the electric car thing, which
Mhm,
is very expensive. Like, I mean, he started from scratch to build that up. Other car companies coming into the electric car market, it's harder to kind of break through into. But I think of particular interest was when Musk wanted to, instead of using the dealership model, like when you go buy a car, you do the
mhm.
dealerships and blah, 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 they're like contracted kind of to sell those. He wanted to just sell directly, and I know the car dealership people fought him very hard to prevent him from being able to do that because, like, I guess in some places you're not allowed to sell a vehicle unless it's through a dealership type of thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that was like a thing for a while, but same type of thing. Like it's preventative of your currently established model, so we're gonna fight to not do that. And I could see like an inventor with some kind of revolutionary technology being very protective, not wanting people in on it because he doesn't want it. Like you said, he wanted to help people with it. So he knows if somebody gets a hold of it from him, either steals his technology and then like has better patent lawyers, prevents him from developing it more, and then it kills his invention that way, or selling it to the wrong person, it kills it. And maybe they didn't like he wouldn't sell it to them, so
Mhm.
they took him out. I could see that.
Kinda reminds me of, speaking of Tesla, didn't, Edison kinda really do similar things to Tesla? Like, he kinda beat him. I mean, maybe, like, Tesla had some really good products, but, like, I think Edison was
Yeah.
better with, like, connections, and he just basically, uh I mean, he beat, Tesla to the punch on all sorts of different things with, like, electricity and, all of
Yeah,
that.
yeah, so Tesla's thing was the AC for electricity, the alternating current,
Mm,
versus Tesla or Edison was behind more of the DC direct current. And the AC model worked better for like houses and stuff like that, but Edison was on the opposite version of electricity. So he didn't want Teslas to get out. So he did lots of things to show, like, look how bad alternating current is. It'll electrocute this elephant. It's dangerous. Don't have it in
oh,
your house.
right, right.
Yeah. So he's a very shrewd businessman. He's kind of a
Mhm,
jerk, but that was Tesla wasn't really in it for the money per se, but he had trouble getting funding and stuff because of he's up against like a PR machine and Edison,
yeah,
and his ideas, though they were better, ended up just kind of dying because you can't make money off stuff that's more efficient, or back then
mhm.
there's more efficient and better for people. So they just went with the DC route.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So it's kind of a similar story, even though it's not like Mayer had some sort of main rival, but or you could say the rival was the big elephants of um, the
Big
international
oil.
automobile industry,
Yeah.
big oil,
Big auto.
automobiles, uh, government, like oil. I mean, obviously, oil just impacted the whole world back in the 70s with these embargoes and all that, and it
Well,
still does.
recently too, yeah.
Mhm.
With like the
Um,
prices and stuff. But yeah, but that's the thing. In the government, I could see them being like, well, if you're not going to give it to us, we'll make sure nobody else can get it. And, sorry, you're dead. Now we
yeah.
don't have anything. So,
Ugh.
that I think that kind of stuff happens. And maybe not in this case, you could say, okay, he wasn't really upfront about the technology. It's hard to confirm. The way he was saying it worked doesn't seem like it would work with our understanding of thermodynamics and physics, because it would take so much more energy to do that, kind of like cold fusion. Like that's the thing that people want to kind of develop. I think they're closer to it now, to realizing it. But back in the 90s, was it, I think, cold fusion, some guy said, oh look, we invented it, we could do it. It's not as hot of a temperature as you would need for normal reactions. And there was like questions on whether or not they were able to do it. They were smeared because they couldn't really replicate it. But then people were like, well, maybe they could. It was just something weird happened. Yeah, whatever.
Mhm.
But yeah, so I could see kind of a similar thing there.
Yeah. So that's the unfortunate mystery of Mr. Stanley Mayer, not John Mayer.
No.
John Mayer's doing just fine because he's showing his product to the world at quite amazing concerts.
Well, before I guess we totally jump off the subject, what is if you had a vehicle, like what would be your, if you could run it off anything, what do you think you would want to run it off of?
I mean, the water is a cool idea, but I guess air. Can we just do air? Like, I don't know. Just kind of keep recycling it. Like, if we can, like,
Uh-huh.
it can be sucked in and then push the vehicle out, like a flying car, I guess, essentially. And then it just kind of goes around. So I don't know.
Sounds like solid technology, Zane. I
I
think you
know.
got it worked out.
I'm an engineer. We can really go off the rails, but it's really cool if like these recent, more in-depth research into UFOs or UAPs and all that, and how apparently in these UAPs, the inside of it, they have possibly reverse engineered some of these crafts, but there's some sort of element that's very rare on Earth, but maybe these aliens, beings, whatever, they have access to this element that can create like a bubble that warps space time around the immediate vicinity of the vehicle of the UAP. And so basically it can go at ridiculous speeds, not possible in regular reality. And so that's kind of a cool concept. If
The
you
element 115, is that it? The Bob
so,
Lazar one?
that sounds right.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother episode right there. But
Oh yeah,
I
yeah,
just
definitely.
kind of learned more about like how these possible UFO UAP ships work. But yeah, just that'd be pretty interesting stuff. But it would just be different because if you're inside there, reality is just different. It's just outside. It's just, I mean, I guess it's like the recent X-Men movies where like Quicksilver is running around and you see from his perspective, like
Mhm.
he's moving like,
No,
you
don't
know,
get me started with those movies.
I know you don't like those movies, but his perspective is cool. Like everything's really slow.
I like the
And
concept
everything's
of those.
moving fast. So,
Yeah.
but
My thing with Quicksilver is that they made him way too fast. Like in the comic, he doesn't run that fast. Like he was running more like Flash runs, and Flash is like the fastest in the DC thing, But for Quicksilver in Marvel comics, he's not as fast. I digress. Anyways, but yeah,
speaking of fast, what would your vehicle run on?
I've always liked the concept of hydrogen, and I think the limitations with hydrogen is that you need a lot of pressure to store hydrogen in a vehicle. But even more so, I like the mini nuclear reactors in cars, like a thorium-powered car,
Hmm.
and thorium is another thing that you could get into on another episode about nuclear power, because we don't run our nuclear reactors off thorium, but it's safer and I think more efficient than spent nuclear fuel from bombs or whatever they use, plutonium or was it uranium? One of the two, I can't remember, is what we use. But the thorium powered cars. So if you had a little tiny nuclear reactor and put it on the back of your vehicle, it would be safe. I mean, we power naval ships with nuclear reactors. Scale it down for a car. I think that would be great. That or energon cubes,
What are those?
From Transformers.
Okay.
Energon cubes.
Well, yeah, that would be useful too. I think
Yeah.
we'll get there. Especially how fast technology is progressing with AI. We can make these smaller quantum, level fuel cells that can make things very interesting. So,
Oh yeah. But what's even more interesting than the fuel powered, Zane, is songs about fuel powered.
yes.
And I have one for us today in the form of this banger.
In a town by the river where ideas flow free, goes a car that drinks water and that car could see. Old Joe was the genius, his mind was far and wide. Drove that car on pure water till the day he died. Rolling down river on a dream and a plan, water-powered engine of a remarkable man. The folks all gathered round, saw the magic in the air. Joe's wheels kept on spinning, with not a bit to spare. Oh, rolling down river on a dream.
I've got blisters on these fingers.
Yeah, no kidding.
Stewie Griffin would say. So
a little bluegrass up in there.
Yeah, that's good. Bluegrass is always good. Yeah, so that's kind of our water car fuel subject of the episode.
I like it.
It's always interesting to kind of go into the conspiracies. It sounds like this guy kind of had a hard. How many other tinkerers and people who had inventions had to go against these big hurdles like this? You just hear about the things that succeed and that are the big inventions, that are things that we use every day. But how many people have just their life is kind of sucked trying to invent something new?
If you had to put a number on it, Zane, on the likelihood of this guy being behind or being onto a technology that could have revolutionized travel, of 10 being yeah, he had this thing worked out, and 1 being nah, he was just kind of pulling everyone's leg type of thing, where would you put it?
I'll give it a 7.
Okay.
I'm leaning towards this guy. He seemed, like you said earlier, kind of genuine.
Okay. I think I'd fall more in the 6-ish range. I think just because it's from the 70s to the 90s, you couldn't get something a little bit more tangible. But then again, it's expensive to do that kind of, car manufacturing and scaling things up and convincing people. Because even if you had something, they'd be like, nah, that doesn't work. You're just a big scammer. But,
right.
I think, I think it's possible. Maybe he had something figured out. I mean, there's all sorts of weird scientific breakthroughs that people have done on a small scale that people didn't really believe at first. Even the Wright brothers flying, people were like, that didn't happen. People can't fly, but they did it.
Speaking of this technology advancing, think about that image in your head of the Wright brothers flying that craft on the beach to what we have now is really, so that was in the 20s. No, well, teens. So I don't know.
No, it was like 1902 or something like that.
Was it earlier? Okay.
Yeah. Let's say, when did the Wright brothers make sure we have accurate information? 1903.
1903.
So, yeah.
So 100+ years later, and it's really not that long ago, and it is amazing what we have now. Now we just have Boeing planes falling apart. So we're going in the right direction. Yeah. And having their own people possibly getting killed by big corporations.
Yeah, perhaps another episode, Zane.
Yeah.
If we're still alive to do it.
I know. Hopefully this water is okay.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe we can leave it there for this week. And if you guys have any inventions, like we mentioned earlier, you want to share with us, or you have any conspiracies that you might be involved in yourself? Maybe you're an inventor. Maybe you invented a time travel portal or something. We'd love to hear from you, and I'm sure the world would too.
Yeah.
And the government, but we won't tell them.
All right. Well, government corporations don't kill us. Until next time, guys.
Yeah. All right. Bye.
Bye.
Stanley, cool inventor. Water-powered car, no flaw. Drank something, fell to grounded. Big fuel, take him down, down. Sang with his pumpkin spice, no dogs. Bart felt so nice. Mystery in the night. Stanley's gone out of sight, sight. Did they do it? Did they get him? Get him? Stanley's dream, now it's hit him. White car, gonna change it all. Stanley's gone just like a fall. On his face, it sings delight. Stanley gone, no dogs to fight. Secrets in the night. Did big fuel dim the light? Stanley had a bright idea. Water dry, futures near, now he's gone. Sip by sip, did they shut down his trip? Did they do it? Did they get him? Get him? Stanley's dream, now it's hidden. Water car, gonna change it all. Stanley's gone just like a fall. Stanley's dream, now it's hidden. Water car, gonna change it all. Stanley's gone just like a fall. Pumpkin spice, it's Saints delight. Stanley gone, no dogs to fight. Secrets in the night, did big fuel dim the light? Stanley had a bright idea. Spice, it's Sane's delight. Stanley gone, no dogs to fight. Secrets in the night, did big fuel dim the light? Stanley had a bright idea. Water dry, future's near. Now he's gone, sip by sip. Did they shut down his trip? Trip. Did they do it? Did they get him? Water dry, future's near.